government didn't just recover alien bodies, they captured some alive. In a new interview, David Grush says he knows people who had direct interactions with living beings in what he calls a detainment situation. And he said humans communicated with them through some form of telepathy. Here's what's important. Grush testified under oath before Congress in 2023. He talked about recovered craft. He talked about non-human biologics, but he didn't publicly tell Congress this. So why are we hearing it now? Grush says he spoke with a former cabinet member who worked the issue for a former vice president. Then he laughed. You can guess which one, Darth Vader. And that's an apparent reference to Dick Cheney. And Cheney's name isn't new. Journalist Walter Kern previously said Grush privately identified Cheney as being at the top of the classified UFO information pyramid. But now Grush appears to be connecting that circle to living non-human beings. And here's the question we have to ask. Dick Cheney died in November 2025. So why is this much more specific allegation becoming public after Cheney can no longer answer it? Grush still hasn't publicly shown us a living being, a detention facility, or evidence proving Cheney was involved. In 2023, it's recovered craft and non-human biologics. Now, it's living beings, detention, telepathy, and Dick Cheney. If that's true, we need to know what changed. Make sure to subscribe to Mostly True Alien Stories on YouTube. Until then, is this a mostly true alien story or not?
At this point, it's just a he said, she said game, and all we can really do is just wait until the truth is revealed, if that ever happens. I just have a feeling they're trying to delay it as long as possible, or until they can come up with their own truth as to what it is exactly.
There's only a small handful of pictures of this man, yet he is one of the most notable figures. He is the Nikola Tesla of water, and most people have never heard of him. This is Viktor Schauberger, and he has some of the most shocking inventions and findings, although the mainstream still calls him a bit of a pseudo-scientist, except the last I heard, they were very interested in his patents and his work. So Viktor Schauberger, this is not him, this is a friend of his maybe, or a descendant. One of the things he invented was this right here, which is a copper plow. He believed that copper is a biologically appropriate material. He thought that the iron from like a plow or a shovel, disturbs the electromagnetic fields in the soil, and that using copper will actually increase the yield. Also, it's the shape of a spiral, the Fibonacci sequence, which plows more effortlessly. This is one of his inventions, was this copper plow, because he went to, I think, somewhere in Russia and saw that the people that were using the rusty plows to fold over and turn over the soil were having less yield. And so he discovered that this thing actually increases the yield, and there's no friction, and it's not doesn't heat up as much. Like, there's a whole thing about the copper plow. Look up, it's shocking. Then he found that there's something that happens with water when it spiralizes, and he believed there was some type of untapped energy that we can tap into. His whole thing was called Comprehend and Copy Nature. That was his motto. Now, this book I've read. I have this book, Viktor Schauberger, very interesting. And you may buy an egg-shaped water vessel when you find out that Viktor Schauberger viewed egg-shaped vessels as the ideal natural geometry for storing and revitalizing water. Because we know that water, not all water is the same. We're not even talking about the chemicals that are in water, but he figured out ways to purify water without any chemicals, by the way. It's very interesting. But he believed that the curved, cornerless shape prevents stagnation, encourages a continuous centripetal spiral, or a vortex movement, keeps liquids cool and fresh, and helps restore water to a healthy spring-like state. Egg-shaped vessels? Are you interested in getting one now? I certainly am. Let me go look on Etsy or something.
Sounds like I need to get an egg-shaped copper vessel for my water. Don't know if I would go the Etsy route, though. Really interesting stuff. Let me know what you guys think.
Something demonic's going on in Hollywood. Because what is sucking the life force out of the women of Hollywood? Ariana Grande was already pretty petite before this happened, but now she is a skeleton. And no, I'm not body shaming, trust me. Something weird is going on, and I can't explain it. Are they trying to influence the people of the world to also slender down to this size? Are they trying to make this the new beauty standard? Or is there something darker and deeper going on? Are they giving their life force to some supernatural demonic being? As always, stay weird.
To me, it looks like a real bad case of the demon known as Ozempic, and it's definitely draining their life force and probably their wallets. And I've actually heard a theory about why a lot of celebrities and people in power are slimming down, if you will. And the theory is because there's going to be such a massive shortage of food that there's just going to be a lot of people starving. So the celebrities that can afford hunger suppressing drugs will prevail because they can just live off of very little, while the majority of the world will end up starving to death. It's an interesting theory. I don't know if I necessarily believe it. I think that these people are just really hitting a trend. I mean, if you think this is weird, you should see some of the stuff that's going down in Korea as far as bodily fashion, or some really crazy stuff going on. And I think that here in America, this is just that as well, but I could be wrong. Let me know your take on this one. Hey, if you're new here, I would like to welcome you to the channel. My name is Dominic and I upload videos like this Monday through Friday, early in the morning. So if this is the type of content that you like, make sure to like this video and subscribe to see future uploads like this. And for everyone that's made it this far, thank you so much for supporting the channel.
This man was recording a massive plant fire out of Pasadena, Texas, when he captured something unexpectedly. Ray says he captured this in the middle of the blaze, and some viewers believe that this is a drone with some sort of new technology, possibly releasing what appears to be water. But others believe it's a laser. So what are we actually watching? New technology or something else?
I mean, it looks like a drone. If you get a real close look at it, you can see the propellers propelling. But what is that coming from it? Is that a laser of some sort, some kind of light, or is it water? And if it is water, where's all that water coming from? Very interesting. I would really like to know your thoughts and opinions on this one because, I mean, I'm pretty certain it's a drone, but what is that coming from it?
So now Dr. Stephen Greer is saying that we actually have, and this is the first time I've really heard him talk about this, that we have ETs in captivity and that they are being held and that he is seeking liberation for these ETs.
For them, and then, of course, as usual, torture them and interrogate them. But and there are a number of them still living. That's one of the directives when I put together the recommendations and executive order recommendations for the president was that they have a team go in and liberate those guys, the non-human beings that are in there. They're still living. And so I think that the heat sublimine, I think
hold on one second. Let me just interrupt you real quick.
Yep.
So you're saying there's a living ET in a government facility somewhere?
No, you see, this is the mistake everyone makes. What government? Which government?
Well, somewhere. You're saying that someone has a living ET in a cage somewhere. That's what you're saying.
Well,
right?
A number of them, yes.
Okay.
More than one. Because when they down these craft, sometimes they crash to smithereens, but sometimes they have a sort of a hard to soft landing and they capture the ET beings.
So he's making it pretty clear right there. It's not the government. It's people far beyond. Not even the president has access to this stuff. People want him to release all this stuff, but he doesn't have the authority. And I do believe the ETs are in charge. But anyway, let's listen to the rest of it.
ET beings. So the operators, the Delta Force guys and the contractors who are at some of these sites have told me that they have those in their custody, but they're in underground facilities, which is horrible, but
okay, so what do these ETs eat? How do you sustain their life?
I have no idea. I'm sure they figure that out and, they go on. I mean, that's not something I have information on that's credible. I've heard various rumors, but, I wouldn't hang my hat on anything I've heard, but I would have my hang on the fact that we have downed at least 1,000 to 2,000 ET craft.
I don't know. Something just seems off when Stephen Greer talks about this kind of stuff. And, I mean, maybe, who knows? Maybe the military does have ETs They're torturing them, holding them captive. I guess it seems so hard for me to believe, because you mean to tell me that these hyper-intelligent beings, or at least that's what we are told they are, that are capable of traveling through space more efficiently than what we can, somehow gets disrupted through human technology and are able to be held captive. And not only that, you mean to tell me that there's no set plan that these hyper-intelligent beings have set for if we don't return, send backup? And if these beings are so advanced, why would some hyper-advanced being sacrifice their own body when they should have technology that's capable of using some artificial body to go in their place? There's just a lot of things in the science and theoretical aspect of extraterrestrials being downed first of all here on Earth and or being held captive just doesn't sound right, at least in my opinion. One alien, maybe, sure. Maybe even two, I'll give them that. But 1,000 plus? I just feel like if aliens were really out there and they were as smart as people say they are, then there would probably be a rescue coming for their alien companions. Unless ETs as we know it are not from outer space and they're actually from Earth and they're using earthly equipment and they're no different than just normal people. Maybe some hollow earth type of situation. But I don't want to spiral too much more on it. I can go on and on about this topic. Let me know what you guys think about Stephen Greer and or this topic in general.
Next week, we are in for yet another treat from Earth's night sky, and you might be able to see this blood coppery red moon from your backyard. August 27th and August 28th, we will be able to see August's sturgeon moon in a deep partial eclipse. It will be viewable from North America, South America, Europe, Africa, and parts of Asia. The reason why this is a deep partial lunar eclipse is mostly because more than 90% of the moon will be behind Earth's shadow. And the reason why it turns out more red and orangey is because essentially what you are seeing is the sunlight hitting the Earth's atmosphere, the gases in our atmosphere scattering those wavelengths of light, usually filtering out that bluish wavelength color, and those red and orange tones are easily able to move through the rest of our atmosphere, which hits the moon. This is where you will be able to see it. As you can see, a majority of the United States has a great position to view this lunar eclipse. It starts on August 27th around 10:34 p.m. It peaks around 12:12 a.m. on August 28th, and it ends at 1:52 a.m. that same morning. Take your friends, your family, your kids outside to see this partial lunar eclipse, because the next one in 2027 will not be as colorful and dramatic as this one.
Very nice. It looks like I'm in line for a prime viewing experience. Honestly, I'm surprised that I've heard about this one first and not some conspiracy around this blood moon. I have a feeling Moon Henry will have something to say about this in the near future, though. Only time will tell on this one. But let me know, anyone here in America looking forward to this event?
Let me know if you've seen this video. Let me know if something like this ever happened to you. Do you believe in the glitch in the Matrix? Let me know, and TikTok this for entertainment purposes only.
Okay, I've seen videos where people talk about a glitch in the Matrix. So we got this in an Amazon mystery box. My son is a big popcorn fan, so we were like, great, because he usually makes air popped in like a paper bag. So we got this, but the microwave we had was too small, so it was sitting up in the cabinet for a bit. And then we got the bigger microwave and started using it. So I washed it and I went to put it away, and tell me why. Why are there two of them? We did not have two of them. They are identical. What the heck?
I've never once had a duplication glitch like this ever happen to me. I would be very grateful if I had certain things in my life become duplicates. Food would be the number one, but if I could have maybe some money duplicate itself, maybe even an extra vehicle. But honestly, I would settle for an extra popcorn maker as well.
For a long time, one of the comforting things about brain organoids is that their brain waves really aren't very complicated. In fact, they look very much like that of somebody in a coma, and have also been compared to a preterm baby. But since then, we have discovered that the more complex they get, or if they're interacted with, or if they're just put in a body, they do become more complex. Their brainwaves actually do look very much like that of a preterm baby, and we only know that because when a baby is born preterm, you can do an EEG. Prior to that, it's a little difficult because, they're kind of inside somewhere. Now, John Hopkins did claim last year that they created a brain organoid that was comparable to that of a 40-day-old fetus. Yes, it had multiple brain regions, and you can kind of lob different kinds of brain organoids together to create one brain. It's a little difficult to grow everything properly all together. The next goal is to create one that is 1 centimeter across, and that is a mouse brain size. Now that should be concerning because mice are capable of quite a bit of consciousness, but it's also not going to be interacted with, so essentially it's just sitting in a void. If it were capable of some amount of consciousness, it's not being given enough stimulus to be able to experience it. One of the really interesting things to me about these is that they don't really care what they're interfacing with. And yes, there's multiple ways to put them together. You can connect them by axons, so little connections between the brain organoids. Those ones will develop more complex signaling, and they'll all behave as one when they're connected. This also provides the additional benefit that if one of them, expires, you can put in another one, and the old ones can train the new ones. An AI can also train them, or an AI can direct them, or they can direct an AI. I've talked about this stuff. However, once they get large enough, the inner core begins to die off. They suffer from hypoxia. Without a vascular system, they cannot survive, and that has been largely helped by recent research combining them with vascular organoids. And the tech industry has decided to fix this problem by making them 2-dimensional, and that does seem to work. And I wonder if there's going to be a unique form of cognition that comes out of 2-dimensional organoids versus 3-dimensional.
So you mean to tell me that basically there's scientists out there trying to grow these organoids to the size of a mouse's brain just so that they can put it in a black box and study it to see how it responds with no stimulation? That sounds absolutely miserable. And then what's going to happen after they do this study? They're either going to develop another one of these organoids, or they're going to take this one out of the box and give it the stimulation to see what further happens. Truthfully, I am so surprised that there's not very many people talking about these organoids as much as I would have expected there to be. Now, when it comes to the concept of cloning, people are very aware of that and very against that, and I think that that's a good thing to be against. But I do not see very many people talking about this, and or especially talking about this in a negative way. And that just really surprises me. I don't know if it's just because this is still new to a lot of people and people have just not heard about organoids, because I feel like this is almost within the same line of cloning, but in some cases even worse.
The Witch Bonnie is a graveyard statue that is said to be haunted by the spirit of a woman unjustly murdered. The statue stands over a rectangular tomb with her arms outstretched and her face skyward. In her hands, she clutches a veil which falls down behind her body, and her dress is toga style with the folds falling off of her shoulders. Now let's talk about the ghost. Legend says the statue is haunted by the ghost of Clara Lilly, a young girl who was supposedly killed during the Salem witch trials. According to the legend, the bodice of the statue's dress begins to slip on the first day of October. With each consecutive day, the dress is said to slip lower and lower until finally on the night of Halloween, the dress is completely around her waist and the ghost is released. It is said that when Clara is released from her prison, she seeks revenge on the descendants of those who unjustly killed her. So as we're doing Witch Week, I wanted to start off with this legend for a very specific reason. It is the general consensus of historians that none of the victims of the Salem witch trials were truly witches. Yet through pop culture and the general malaise of time, we find ourselves going, well, what if they were? What if something supernatural was going on? And I think this raises a lot of existential questions, like how comfortable are we with the idea that our legacy might be the lies other people told to besmirch us? How do we go about studying legends and mythology when the truth of the situation is itself a lie? Up next, we're going to be talking about Eunice Cole, a woman who was convicted of witchcraft not once, not twice, but 3 times.
Very interesting story, and I do think that witches were mislabeled due to a few reasons. I think that using them as a witch was the label given to make it easier. But 2 things. 1, I think a lot of guys were sleeping around with these women of the forest, and when their wives found out, they're like, oh man, they put me under a spell. And the wives they went with it. And then all the men went with it, and their wives went with it. And then not only that, there was also a need and want of land. So maybe these people that were witches had land that they wanted, So they called them witches and had them burned so that they could take over the land. There's a few theories that I have in mind, but it really does lead down to men sleeping with a bunch of these women and then just saying that they were under their spell, and that's basically what got them all burned. Which is sad and disgusting if that's the truth, but I could honestly see that being the case. Let me know your thoughts and opinions on all this.
So why are all aliens slightly different? Why are all UFOs slightly different? Now, this is seen in all the UFO encounter literature. People describe similar beings and similar craft, but each one is completely different. Now, why would this be? Well, it has a lot to do with like what we'd call generative AI. So say I went to AI and I said, okay, create me a picture of a UFO or a flying saucer. And it made me one. And I said, okay, do that 100 times. Each one would be slightly different. They'd all be similar, but slightly different. And I said, okay, now make me a picture of an alien and do that 100 times. Each one's gonna be slightly different. Now, that's what we see in the UFO and alien encounter literature, is that each craft and each being is slightly different. And they're also influenced by our collective unconscious as we go through different cultural periods. So like back in the late 1900s or 1800s, we had the airship mystery. And when we were materializing these craft and these beings, they were influenced by our collective unconscious. So the beings were more like steampunk people with they always had big eyes, but like almost like this like big sunglasses, wraparound sunglasses, and they look like steampunk like characters. And they're in these big like Zeppelin blimp things, because that's what we were doing at that time. That was part of our cultural psyche. And then we go into like the 40s and 50s, and people were doing like anti-gravity and things like that. And they were using like a flying saucer shape. So that's what we were seeing, is flying saucers. Now we don't really see flying saucers anymore. Now we have like more like the TR-3B stuff and these boomerangs and these pyramids and stuff, because that's think about the B-2 bomber and that kind of stuff. That's where we're going now. So we influence it. Like our collective unconscious is part of this generative process that, as they have to like rapidly materialize, they're pulling in background information from our collective unconscious to fill in the gaps as they rapidly materialize. So when these craft come here, they're not flying here from Zeta Reticuli or some far off star system or something. They're actually in a layer of reality right outside of this one, which we call locale 2, and they're there doing their thing, right? All the time. They're everywhere. And then we sometimes go fishing, and when we reel them in, or whenever like our radar systems and that kind of stuff interferes and everything, they have to phase shift real quick. It's kind of like when you have gas and it turns into liquid and then that turns into ice. That's still H2O, but 3 completely different forms, 3 different phases. Phase X, baby. So that's what's happening with these UFO and these aliens, is they're phase shifting into our reality, sometimes spontaneously, which creates that smell because it's off-gassing from the rapid materialization that they have to undergo. And then sometimes they'll tell us when we talk to them, you know, we say like, what are you and everything? And they're like, we're like you, we're a container. And we don't know what that means. So many people have said that they've told us that we're containers. We're like, containers for what? We're containers for our conscious awareness. And we see them, these aliens, and we say, what are you? They say containers. We're like, what does that mean? Well, that's a container for their conscious awareness. They don't actually look like that. Just like my conscious awareness doesn't look like this. This is just the container it's in right now. I know that's a mind, but that's where I stand on all this. Let me know your thoughts. Have a beautiful day, Pete.
That's a very interesting concept, but why is it only a select few times or select areas where these beings that are actively everywhere in locale 2 just randomly show up here and there for some people? If there's so many in locale 2 just doing their thing, why aren't we seeing them all over the place? Why are we not manifesting them under our image and our design like all of the time? When it's a very popular subject that a lot of people think about, you would think that if people are thinking about them, and if manifestation is a part of their summoning, if you will, and what determines their shape and size, why aren't we seeing them more often, and why is it so rare?
A tripod UFO was spotted on the surface of Mars by NASA cameras, okay? This is from the Curiosity rover, and 13 seconds before this, an image was taken, the object wasn't there, and then 13 seconds later, this tripod object appears, right? Check this out. Amazing, right? And the images will be linked down below. So this was shot about 150 meters away and makes this object about 1.5 meters tall, so about probe size. It looks kind of similar to the 2017 military jellyfish UFO data, or it could be straight from Warner Worlds, mate. We don't really know, but all I know, it looks kind of strange. So the whole landscape is here, and a lot of people that have been analysing this is saying this is a physical object, because when it comes to the Mars Curiosity rover, the rover has captured physical objects which basically kind of have this silhouetted type outline here, and there's been many anomalies over the years that have been captured. So right? There's no dust cloud, there's no dust present in the area there. Like I said, there's no plume. So whatever this is basically stationary, which is suggesting. Or it could be a sensory artifact. You know, there could be some sort of radiation that's hitting the lens, which is causing this strange artifact to happen. And that is not uncommon. It does happen a lot with these sort of images that we are seeing. But I can't help but not ignore. Look at the state of that, mate. Right? I'm saying the aliens are here. What are you saying?
Honestly, I'm surprised that NASA even released these photos. That definitely looks like something standing on a tripod in the distance. It looks like to me maybe NASA has forgotten to dismantle some of their filming equipment on Devon Island.
Okay, hold on a second. Are we on the same wavelength? That there's no way you build a bell that's almost £500,000 for no reason. Like, these served more than a purpose of making just this little sound and being cool looking. You don't build almost immovable objects for no reason. So what happened with all the old bells, and why was the whole world all about bells? You see them in Nepal, they got bells all over China, all over the place. You got a gong, think of the gong in Japan and China, bang. What's with the bell sound? Well, it turns out bells have been used as a spiritual weapon to repel demons and evil spirits. But if you've ever seen Spider-Man 3, where Venom infects Peter Parker there, and he turns into the evil Spider-Man, well, when he's in the church and the bell rings, it terrorizes the Venom, which then falls down and lands on the other guy who turns into Venom. But that was shocking to see, wasn't it? So then why? The official story is that these bells, I think they rounded them up to like make tanks or something. It was during the war. But people are very curious what the real angle is about bells. Now, I was looking into my local bylaws. You can get a bell on your property and ring it, just not at 11 o'clock at night. So you could have a bell. This is what, think about wind chimes. All these things is sound, frequency, energy, vibration. Think about how you can take a tuning fork and bang it and then bring it close to another tuning fork, and the other tuning fork starts matching the same frequency. There's a code to be cracked here of sound, energy, frequency, and vibration, just like Nikola Tesla knew.
I will have to say one really cool thing about living here in South Carolina. We do have a lot of really small towns, and a lot of those small towns actually still use church bells. And I think that's pretty cool personally. I do wish that we would go back to using more bells because they just sound nice.
Either someone's screwing with CERN right now, or someone's playing the harp, if you get what I'm saying. Everything I'm showing you in this video is happening over the last 24 to 48 hours. And there's more, a lot more, and some of it even looks just downright bizarre. So obviously, clearly, this is not lightning. I mentioned CERN, not related of course, because we've seen when CERN fires up, sometimes it does the same exact thing in the sky, just all these different lights and glitches happening right above us. And there's two different videos of two different locations, the same exact weird glitch thing happening at the same exact time in the sky. The next one I'm about to show you, it looks like reality itself was split open in the sky out by the ocean. Now check this out. This is clearly not the sun. It was recorded in real time. This is a video. There's no circle the light was emulating from. It's like there's a tear right in reality, its freaking self. But of course, people are still going to claim that, oh, it's a boat, or oh, it's the sun, because their brain's too challenged by all these things they don't know. They rather say it's something they do know so they can sleep at night. If I had to guess, someone's rocking out with a harp, by the way, on YT now.
For the flashing lights, I would have to say that could be heat lightning. We have that quite a bit here in South Carolina, especially during the summertime. I'm not saying that is what it is, but that's what it looks like it could be to me at least. And for the orange thing in the ocean, I have no clue as to what that could be.
I'm not beating around the bush here. I'm just going to call this exactly as it is. So Hayden Panettiere, an actor, you've probably seen her before. She was awesome. She was phenomenal, especially in Scream as Kirby. Incredible. She was found dead by overdose. I dive into this stuff all the time. This is what I do. You're going to tell me 3 months ago she comes out with her memoir, This Is Me, A Reckoning. And everyone goes, yeah, well, that memoir, the title of that memoir is because it's about her reckoning and her rebuilding herself from past drug addictions and from past traumas and this and that. Maybe But maybe there's a little subtle hint in that title. Maybe she was the reckoning, because in the book, she exposes corruption in Hollywood. In the book, she recounts two separate events, two separate things that occurred to her when she was 18 and 19 years old. You probably heard one of these stories on a podcast 3 months ago when she goes into it, talking about how a good friend of hers was on a boat with her and she trusted this girl, and this girl took her downstairs in the boat and took her into this small room where Hayden was staring at an extremely well-respected, highly influential, powerful person in Hollywood, who then proceeded to do lewd things and take advantage of her. Hayden mentions this in her memoir, but she also mentions another time when she was 19 years old and an Academy Award-winning actor / director, because she didn't name names, but an Academy Award-winning actor and director completely revealed himself to her, completely nude, and then proceeded to try to take advantage of her. Both of these pieces of information came out 3 months ago, and then 3 months later, she's found dead at 36 years old by an overdose. This is what happens when everything that got released in the Epstein files gets left alone and no arrests are made, and there is no repercussions for people's actions. This is what happens. All of the people in those files that were named, the Hollywood elites that continue to think they can get away with everything, did get away with everything in those files, so they're just going to keep on doing it, because at the end of the day, who's going to stop them? This should be scaring you more than you think, because in this day and age, I'm not really down to think of things as coincidences anymore.
Rest in peace to Hayden. I did hear about this Sunday, and it is horrible news. I do hope her family is handling the situation the best that they can, because that is quite devastating. And honestly, it doesn't seem coincidental. I mean, she may have had her own demons that she was facing, but I personally do not believe that she took her own life and or it was due to an overdose on her own behalf. I think that there was just a risk of names possibly coming out, and whoever didn't want those names coming out used what they knew could be used against her to make it seem like a legit cause. That is what it looks like to me. And that's what it keeps looking like with all of these celebrity deaths that keep happening.
There has been so much discourse and negativity on the internet as of late, so I think it is time for some positive Earth news. And I think you'll like this one. For more than 60 years, scientists thought that a huge coral reef off of the coast of Benin was assumed to be completely wiped out and dead. But new researchers went there in 2025 and they discovered something completely different. In the 1960s, there was a research team that went to this exact same place. They were researching fishing grounds and trying to map the ocean floor. So what they did is they threw a bunch of nets off of their boats and tried to pull up whatever they could find, because they didn't have ROVs like we have now. And they found some coral. And that coral did not look great. So they assumed there was a barrier reef down there, and they labeled this reef as dead. Well, a new research team went to that exact spot in 2025, and they used the maps from the 1960s. They just published their studies last month, and what they found is that this coral reef was not only alive and well, but it was a very rare kind of coral reef for their area. At about 177 feet down in the ocean, they found a very rare mesophotic coral reef. This is a type of coral reef that sits in the ocean's twilight zone, so it's not like a normal one that sits in shallow waters. This one runs on very little sunlight. In this reef, they found 8 different types of fish, including the African snapper, a butterfly fish, a damselfish, and they found different types of coral like black coral and octo coral. And it turns out this coral reef is the only one of its kind in the Gulf of Guinea's continental shelf. Why is this even good news? Well, if you didn't know, coral reefs are very beneficial to the marine life that live in the ocean, but overall an indicator of the ocean's health. And as of now, around 84% of the Earth's coral reefs have experienced some sort of pollution, climate change, or bleaching event. And by 2050, that will be around 90% of Earth's coral reefs. So for scientists to find a relatively healthy, intact, rare, and non-bleached coral reef is almost unheard of at this point. So it gives them a chance to study this reef, see what we're doing differently there, and how we can help other reefs around the world. And hopefully in the future, scientists will be able to do enough to help all of the reefs.
Hey, it doesn't hurt to have a little bit of good news.
I feel happy. I feel healthy. I'm a human being.
Same here, man. Same here. Alright guys, I'm gonna go ahead and end today's video. As always, I want to thank you guys for watching these clips with me. As usual, I feel happy, I feel healthy, I'm doing my best, and if today's your birthday, happy birthday, and if not, have a good day anyways.